Good evening, Lawrence, friends, fans, and families, and welcome to another session of Goal to Go, brought to you by the Lawrence University Vikings Gridiron Club. Today, I am really excited to have with us one of the fixtures on the Lawrence University football defense, middle linebacker number 45, Jonathan J.P. Pasquarello. J.P., welcome to Goal to Go.
Yep, thank you for having me.
JP, you've really, as I've mentioned, been a fixture on this defense. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit first about being a linebacker in football and your contribution to the football program. So if you're ready, let's get right into it. The linebacker is essentially the quarterback of the defense. So with that in mind, can you walk us through the moments between the sideline signal and the snap? And in that regard, how do you ensure that all 11 guys are on the same page?
Usually before the snap and after the signal, there's just a lot of talking on the field. Even before the offense gets lined up, we're just talking. I'm usually talking to my D linemen, telling them certain things to do, and basically putting them where I need them to be for us to be as successful as possible on defense. And it goes the same way with the defensive backs. Like we're calling out coverage changes, stuff like that, just trying to make sure that we're all on the same page pre-snap.
Do you consider yourself one of the players that's the first to kind of recognize what's going on the opposite side? Or are there any other guys that tend to be the spotters when it comes to that?
I would say yes, from a front seven point of view. I usually am the first. Well, I am the first person to call out, where our strength is, and different things like that that involve the D line. But then Colby's a pretty good eye in the sky, and he's usually calling out different formational changes and whatnot. And it's usually between us two and some other backers that are, putting in their inputs, making sure that we all see the same thing.
Certainly not surprised to hear you mention Colby in that conversation. Colby Gelvin, a defensive back in his third year with Lawrence University football. JP, I've read over your stats. I don't know if you're a follower of stats very much. Do you check your own stats from game to game?
I know during the first game I was going into the game with 200 career tackles. Definitely want 300 to be a number that I hit this year.
I've noticed, JP, that from the moment you set foot here in Appleton, you have been one of those guys who has consistently recorded high tackle counts, number of turnovers, all the rest. Looking back at last week against Cornell, the defense, especially in the second half, put on a stellar performance, I felt. You finished with your tied for your personal record for second in your personal record in total tackles in last week's game with 14. And you've only exceeded that number once before, but that's a lot of tackles. I wondered, to what habit or mentality do you attribute that kind of consistent success, JP?
I'm honestly going to probably attribute it to just watching a lot of old football when I was growing up, and just a lot of hard nosed guys like Brian Dawkins and Steve Atwater, and those types of safeties that would come down and just lay the wood on people. And that's kind of where my mentality has grown since I was 5 years. I started playing when I was five, so this will be my 16th season of full contact football. So a lot of it's just comes from my youth coaches growing up. We just always had a physical mentality, and I try to bring that everywhere I've been. And it's also a lot of just the coaches put me in the right position during the practice that week, and I'm just very lucky to be playing middle linebacker where tackles are kind of part of the job.
Well, you seek out contact and contact seeks out you for sure. You've been doing this, as I've said, at a high level now for 3.5 years with this program, roughly 3+ years anyway. You've become kind of one of those guys who we start looking for some gray in the beard a little bit. And with that in mind, what do you feel is your role in mentoring the younger linebackers on your core?
A lot of it is just getting them into the same mentality of getting in the film and getting in the playbook as much as everyone needs. It's different from guy to guy how much playbook time they need to like learn the plays, but just trying to make sure everybody's always knows what they're doing at every position that they're going to play. And a lot of it also goes into the effort I try and put in practice. I just try to do a show, not tell kind of mentality where I'm just going to show everyone the right way to do it. And if people ask questions and whatnot, I always am there to help, showing them how things should be done rather than telling them what should be done and not doing it myself.
It sounds like you're a guy who's a big believer in leading by example. And we've talked about your impressive numbers over the 3+ years you've played for Lawrence, but I suspect there are parts of playing the linebacker position that are not necessarily things that are picked up in the stat sheet. So, are there any kind of unheralded or dirty jobs that a linebacker does or has to do? Maybe they don't show up in the box score, but they're a critical part of defensive success. Are there any, and what would they be?
Biggest thing is probably a lot of people would say it's not a fun job is going and hitting pullers coming around the edge, but that's one of my favorite parts is just hitting a puller right when he's not expecting it, right as he turns the corner, and just catching him on something that he's not seeing. I just really enjoy catching people on their blind side. So
It sounds a little bit like a description of flying under the radar. You're
yeah,
for that
well,
puller. You're not necessarily landing the tackle, but you're wiping out the puller in the process. So,
yeah, at least, yeah.
JP, I'm going to change. I'm going to change the script here a little bit on you. We're going to move to finding out a little bit more about the guy behind the helmet. I checked with you before the meeting, and you told me that you are a major in history and a minor in computer science. And my first reaction to that was, well, that's a really interesting combination of STEM and humanities. So I'm curious, what led to this combination of study? How do you manage the demands of what I know to be a very rigorous academic path with the physical demands of playing college football?
I just really enjoyed building apps, but I've never enjoyed math. So last year I was in multivariable calculus, and we started going over planetary laws of motion, and that was when I was starting to think like maybe this isn't the path for me anymore. I've been thinking about switching to history since I'd basically gotten to college. It's always just been a really big aspect of my life. It's just something I've always enjoyed studying and reading about. It's just history, ancient history, a lot of the Mediterranean stuff I've been into recently. And so when I decided to switch from computer science to history, I'd already completed my computer science minor. And so that has kind of just gotten tagged on to what I'm doing now with history.
I know that college goes by fast, and I know that it is swinging by for you pretty quickly at this point, but
Yeah.
there's still plenty to be done, but I know it's coming. What are your plans for after?
Right now, I'm looking at trying to go get my master's in Germany. That's where all the history I'm interested in is. So I'd like to go study over there. There's a couple of schools I'm looking at that I need to reach out to. I've also got some internships that I'm looking at NFL Films. That's always been a lifelong dream of mine. I just grew up watching Football Life and NFL Top 100 and all those type of things.
Let's talk about kind of your personal approach to football generally. Is there any sort of, and I've asked this question of other players, and I've gotten some interesting reactions to this. Are there any required or unusual superstitions or traditions you follow, rituals leading up to a game? Any kind of a pregame meal or snack or a lucky piece of gear or a specific song you need to listen to before a game?
Recently, there hasn't really been anything at all. I just try to go into the game as calm as possible because emotions are usually flying pregame, and that usually leads to me not being as locked in the second half as I need to because that kind of adrenaline shot is already starting on its way down if I try to hype myself up too much in pregame. So I try to just go into the games as calm as possible, as relaxed as possible, because I already know what I need to do, and I know that I have the ability to do it. And so it's not really as much of getting into a mode for me as it is just making sure I'm not overthinking things and not being too hyped up before the game.
Is there a frame of mind or a image or
Um,
something else that you kind of try to get into to kind of clear your mind and not get too wrapped up in the emotion of pregame?
I try to just stay off my phone and kind of just try to relax in my locker while I'm getting dressed and I'm stretching for the game. But I go out pretty early with the like special teams units for pregame. So I'm usually out there earlier than everyone else. And so I have more of a time to kind of stand on the field and just relax the mind.
I can see you have a mind for football, so I want to see if we can put that mind to work here for a moment. I want to ask you if you could design a defensive play, what would it be called and what would its objective be?
I would probably call it something like along the lines of bomber or some World War II term or something, just that kind of alerts them to, attack. Um, I probably send a lot of, I do a lot of fake blitzing, a lot of fake, switching of the field, showing fake coverages and whatnot to confuse the defense as much as possible. So probably get some slants with the D line going one way, having a backer or two go the other, stuff like that.
Okay, and you would call it bomber or something along those lines.
Yeah, something bomb related, maybe Fat Boy or Little Man.
Oh, a little Hiroshima Nagasaki going on there. Okay, at least I think I got the illusion there. Let's talk a little bit about looking back over your football career. And I'm curious about any memories you've had so far in your experience where you had, like, sir, maybe a third down stop or a goal line stand in your career where you felt like the game shifted or changed because of it. Any memories of a play that you thought kind of framed the game or turned a game?
The biggest one was a fourth down stop against, I believe it was Knox last year. And I remember they had a lead blocker coming through the B gap. Um, and I closed off the gap, and it was like 4th and 1. And I think me and maybe Tucker had made a combined TFL to stop the drive. And that's the next drive we drove down the field and scored.
That was definitely a turning point in the game. The defense had made some adjustments, and you guys needed to stop to get the ball back. And yeah, that was definitely a memorable stop. One last question for you on the retrospective side again. With your 3+ years in the program, are there any lessons that you've taken from your experience with football, whether it was something that was an experience on the field or maybe just off the field in terms of your exposure to football that way? Is there anything from that that you'll carry with you going forward once you've taken the pads off for the last time?
I think trying to enjoy everything that I do, because there's a lot of points in football where maybe it's the tenth or 11th sprint, and you're kind of not enjoying it. But I've really tried over the last 2 years, especially, to just enjoy every second I get, with the pads on. I think that'll carry into my, work life, trying my best to enjoy my job so that I make the most of it as, I can. I'll have more time to devote to other things once this is over, and I'm hoping to put all of the passion that I have in football into, something else.
What I'm taking from this is a person who's going to probably take through life the notion of always being prepared, because it sounds like a lot of your success on the football field has been the byproduct of your preparation. Recognizing what offenses are doing, understand how your defense is supposed to work, what guys are supposed to be doing. JP, we really appreciate your time with us. It's been great for us to have an opportunity to meet one of the stalwart players on this defense, especially following last week's game where the defense really rose to the occasion and put in what I think was one of the best halves of football on defense that I've seen Lawrence play. We wish you continued success through the balance of the season. Continue to make those tackles. 300 is within reach. Just stay healthy. And we also wish you success with the balance of your academic year and beyond. So there you have it, folks. Jonathan Pasquarello from the Tidewater area of Virginia.
I actually grew up in New Jersey,
Oh
in
boy.
South Jersey.
I made a comment earlier about Kevin Smith. Now it's really coming home. So, JP, we wish you success. Enjoy the bye week. For those of you who are tuning in on this, it should be posted on the Friday before the Saturday of the bye week. We wish you guys a good recuperative bye week, and we look forward to seeing you guys back out on the field down in, where is it? I think Jacksonville.
Yeah.
Jacksonville, a week from Saturday. And we wish you well with that. Get a bunch of tackles, can keep up the success. And thanks again for joining us.
Yep. Thanks for having me. It was great. Thank you again.
Folks, I hope you've enjoyed yet another one of our Goal to Go sessions here with the LU Vikings Gridiron Club YouTube channel. As you know, we are actively involved in supporting the program through the Gridiron Club. And if you've noticed these videos and if you're interested in getting involved, we'd love to have you. You can find us online, Google us. We have a web page on the Lawrence University Athletics website under football. Look us up and let us know if you'd like to pitch in. Beyond that, have a good evening.